All right, Mopar people, welcome back to the channel. I'm just Mopar Joe. There's Bert back there looking at us. So I got a lot to unpack on this 580 deal. If you're new to the channel or new to the build, the engine's been rebuilt at least twice by two different reputable companies. It doesn't look good. The block's got a lot of issues that I'm seeing that I'm sure as you watch along, you'll see more stuff than I do. And that's just how it happens. So we're all in this together. So don't think that I'm claiming to be the top expert on aftermarket Mopar engine blocks, as this is about the second one that I've ever dealt with. Before this thing comes apart, I wanted to check the deck clearance of my little bridge here. And I realized that I'm in the middle of the piston right now, and there's a dish there. Someone had mentioned these pistons having this extra relief. It doesn't have a full quench pad there, and I'm assuming they were trying to work with compression for some reason, but they're custom-made pistons. I understand what he was mentioning there, but they are balanced and ready in here right now, so I think we're gonna roll with them. Move just barely there. Okay. So there's zero there. I'm gonna zero us. We know that one's all the way up. That's what I was doing. Let me find some good flat spots here on the deck. There we go. So even right now, that dude is about 10 thousandths, it looks like, the depth of that dish. So now that I know that, I can zero us back out right here. I got 200 thousandths preload on my gauge, and I'll try us down here first. Right now, 12 and a half, and this does have some piston rock, so if you watch it, if we rock that way, looks like 7, roughly. So 12 and a half and 7, find the difference. Try us here, get off that rusty spot. Same thing, about 10. If I rock us, there it goes to 9. I got her tilted up. All the oil drained out the other day. She's got some good old plain Jane oil pan bolts. All the oil drained out the other day, but I didn't want to flip it back over in case there was some trash or something at the bottom of the pan. And I didn't want to have to stand on my head and undo these bolts. So, that's why I'm doing it like this. Oh, we got lucky. Ha-ha. There you go. Not really bad. There's some chunks of RTV or something there. That one's pretty well stuck. Let's see if this will pop off. I didn't bend it too bad. I'll flip it over and straighten it right now while you're looking. There you go. Okay. Well, I'd say she was definitely broken in. It's mostly just glitter from, I'm assuming, the rings, the seating and all that. There's a little chunk there. I'm gonna wipe it out, wash it out and all that. I just thought y'all might want to take a gander and see what's going on in here. I didn't see any big chunks of anything. Maybe up there. I'll wipe her out. Now that I got her flipped over, I can tell which one had a sleeve put in it. Remember, that was part of the story from before. I want to get you real nice and close so you can see it hanging out right there. That is not piston skirt. That is the sleeve. And I gotta ask a few experts, and I know you'll tell me out there in the comments how you feel about that. Here comes the skirt itself out of the block, and that is kind of some rusty looking water on it, but I don't know, it's a little wild. I'm not a machinist, and I don't know if that's proper practice or acceptable for that to be hanging out like that. But I guess we can start popping a few pistons out. The crank's got a little booger up on it there. A little easier to see once everything's apart. There's a good sound. Did you hear that? That's probably just rods floating or something. Surely. I went ahead and checked the side clearance on all these rods, and they were all 21 thousandths. Not sure what the spec is for aluminum rods, but I'll be able to find out soon. I tried to take one of these bolts off with my 3/8 breaker bar, and it is very, very, very tight. So I've got my snap-on torque wrench hooked up here in reverse, and I'll see what it reads. This one I got a little bit of movement on. 48. That went up to 70. That's probably about normal. I got 2 pistons out so far. And that second compression ring there is stuck. It didn't even pop open whenever I got it out like the top ones did. Number one, but all those were free. That none of them were lined up or anything, but the skirts look pretty. They look a little rough. They need a little love maybe. Had some rock or something going on there, but great big old bore and big old stroke. What I'm gonna do is go ahead and get the rest of the pistons out so we can study them on the bench and kind of see what all our bearings look like in our crank journals. And maybe we can check the rod bearing clearance also, just so we know. I do think I'm gonna go ahead and order new rod bearings for sure. I haven't seen the mains yet, but we'll find out in just a minute. Before pulling this crank out, I wanted to check the crankshaft in play. Forward. Just on that side of 0. Go the other way. We are right at 2. It's pretty tight. I got the bolts out the side right now. You'll notice how fogged over that looks, and it's literally wet. So inside my shop was 50 degrees, real cool. The slab itself is super duper thick. And outside is nice and muggy. And I thought to myself, for just a minute, I would leave the door open and go grab something out of the truck and come back. And that's how quick that happened. So if you get some, you see the moisture in your engine, that could be part of it right there. It's just a crazy weather changes. You shove your car outside and it's been sitting in a cool shop all day or something. But yeah, eventually that would have to gather up and go somewhere. We're going to look at the pistons in a minute. Let me get the caps off, main caps off now, and we'll look at the main bearings together. But it spins nice and freely, but there's no need for me to keep spinning it. It's not doing me any good in case there is some damage going on there. The owner's other concern that I can mention today is the state of the cam bearings. What do they look like? I know in the other Muscle Motors engine that we pulled apart for the silver car, they were horrendous. So hopefully these will be better. They won't have to be replaced. So I've got the crank out, and I just wanted to show you how to pull the cam. It's got a nice float in and out, turn smoothly and all that. So that's kind of the things that I look for when I'm putting a cam in, if it has good alignment with the cam bearings. But I want to attempt to not mess this up. And there's our number. Hopefully you can see that. Hopefully it matches the cam card because I just found something that does not add up from what I was told. Let's go look. Here's all the main bearings. For an engine that has like dyno time and basically zero run time after that, I think they look kind of funky. So there's like extreme wear on the outside of the thrust here and there. And then there's extreme wear on the inside of 4 and the inside of 2. And somebody right now is yelling at the screen. I know exactly what that is. Let me show you the caps before you keep yelling. Hold on. So here are the caps in the order in which they came off. See, the inside thrusts are both still worn, but now it's the outside number 2 and the outside number 4. Something else funky, this number 5 bearing has copper there where it looks like it needed to be chamfered or something. See it? Like that was rubbing the crank. It only had 0.002 or barely 0.002 of end play. I did check that before I pulled the crank out, but some of that stuff's looking pretty wild. Here's our cam. I can jump to it. My first thought was that this thing has been reground, and maybe it has, but I talked to Rick Seaman about it. He said potentially it could be ground like this because it has such large rods and large stroke that the rods would miss the backside of the crank or cam whenever they rotate. I don't know, but I'm sure y'all will be telling me in the comments. But I just want to share with you. It is not fully grooved for oiling because the oil's blocked off anyway. Let me see what else. It had really fine bolts in the front of this cam. What I just did was jump back to the actual engine block itself, and I put the cam back in, and I put a lifter in, and I checked the lift, and we were, see where it says lobe lift 485? I think I got 482. So this could actually be the correct card for this cam. The numbers on this card don't actually match the cam, or the ones on the back that I could tell. But another fun surprise about our crankshaft, about our Callie's crankshaft, is that it's a Molnar. And you can see our, hopefully I can get in there, 4.5 stroke. The numbers on that's 2442. So this entire time he's told me it's got a Callie's crank. That is not a Callie's crank. That's a Molnar crank, which might be a perfectly fine crank. But if the crank was potentially got a little bend to it, I could see maybe that harming our bearings. I had a viewer ask about where's the cam button previously, and I wanted to show you that. That's pretty trick, that diamond cam button that has the full roller in it. So that's a nice piece. All the skirts of these pistons do have some wear in them. That was the ring. That one's finally free. I think it's number 2. One of them had a ring was actually stuck, like rusted, stuck in the inside of the piston itself. But it wiggled and moved out. But here's some of the skirt action. This is the worst skirt of all of them. I wanted to show you that. So it's kind of worn to that darkened color there. It's pretty rough. I know they make a service. Ed at Ed's Machine has told me about that you can send your pistons off and get them coated there. Get your skirts coated. And that might be an option for this. I don't know. I can't, like I said, we couldn't make a game plan until we knew this was number 6. See how beautifully crusty or rusty she was. That's amazing. There we are. See all the speckles in there? But these are actually, they do have a chamfer on them to miss the crank. I don't know why the one in that cap missed, you know? Because the one in the block, it's plenty far back, it looks like. Never got close at all to touch. There's some vertical scarring in the cylinders. And, you know, we can tell by the skirts that's contacted before. So here was just a quick and easy at-home test that I got from Ed. I don't have any V-blocks, but I'm going to use number 5 and number 1 crank bearings as my V-blocks. And there's miles of rim around this thrust. I'm not going to get close to the thrust. Also, that flange right there, see how it's kind of between the block. It'll help. But all I'm doing is trying to get my indicator close as I can to the oil hole. And we're going to spin this dude. Just go nice and slow. Look for any movement in our needle. I went backwards and it moved. I'll keep going this direction. So that's on 1,000th right there. Let's see if it returns. I'll zoom you in some more. About 45 more degrees, it'll be at the oil hole. I'm back at my original oil hole. And right past it. Go a little quicker. That showed a little movement. See our movement? I wanted to show you some of the scratches in this crank, and that's one of the journals that doesn't have a bearing on it right now. So I can feel those with my fingernail. This dude needs to be a polish. It needs a polish job for sure. I did mic that, and I stuck a cap in, measured with the old bearings. It had about 3/1000ths main bearing clearance. So I think that was fine. If you'll remember in a previous video, I showed you that the oil holes here have a little tiny set screw, and they're drilled with a small orifice. And that helps control the oil to the top end of the engine. This engine also had, or has, push rod oiling. So it's kind of like a double source. I think that's why they cut that down. And as we flip over, that number 4 cam bearing doesn't go to anything. And first I thought, that's not right. They cut the oil off to those anyway. After talking with Ed, I then realized this is like a priority oiling deal. So here's my blowgun. If I can hit the hole there, it comes out somewhere. And then we looked for the 3 block plugs. Remember, there was my one I had to plug, the other I had to plug, and there's a third tube right here, or oil galley, that runs the whole distance of this dude. And there they are. So 1, 2, 3. Oh, that looks cool. That's great. The cam bearings are pretty scratched up here, there, and yonder. So here's our diamond pistons. And I went ahead and mic'd one 90 degrees to the pin bore, almost exactly in line with it, about middle of the skirt right there. So to the best of my ability. That's how I always do, or how I usually mic pistons. And I've set up my Anytime Tools dial bore gauge on that reading. So I was trying to figure out here the piston wall clearance that is in the block right now. So this is going to be very difficult to film and show you. But say we just start about an inch down. And I'm rocking my gauge till it gets to its lowest point. Right there is about 7. Hopefully you can see that. There's 7. We're just going to plunge straight down, close to the bottom. Remember, we got a big stroke here. So we're still a little over 7. Come on up. Well, right there, excuse me, right there, about 6, 5.5, 6. And Ed did remind me that they probably had a torque plate on here, so that could have changed, you know, the top part of that cylinder up some. So we're not going to be too judgy about any of that. But let's look like, as the thrust goes, a little over 7. A little over 7. Swap to the other side, like number 7 here. See, we're about 7 there. Let me turn that dude 90 degrees. How are we going under 5? I'm holding it the best I can. Try to get the glare off there. That's... Yeah, we're riding under 5 here. Two. Let me turn this back, try. Back to about 7. See, it could be my gauge, but I've tried it 10 different ways, and there's a couple spots where it just really does drop below 5, and I don't understand how that's happening. I don't think it, you know, if it's torque plate within the top inch or so of that, I could see, but the entire depth of that cylinder and this giant thick block, that kind of blows my mind. I really think we need to try to, especially to clean up the cylinders, get it rehoned, you know. Remember our rust spots, they need to be dealt with as well, but just something to try to make it better than it is. Anyway, I appreciate y'all watching. And if you're new to the channel, check out the other videos on this, and you can kind of get the whole backstory on it. But yeah, plan's in motion now. I appreciate y'all watching, and I'll catch you next time. All right, Mopar people.